Welcome to Flirting with Bitcoin. I'm your host, Mandana Yousefi, and this is my boo.
Ian Reese.
Hey, Ian.
Hey, babe.
I feel like a changed woman.
Okay. What happened?
I went from being really confused every time I would see things about Bitcoin on the internet. And for the first time ever, I feel like I get it a little.
Get what?
Like the sayings that I read, for example, buy the dip. I understand what that means. I understand what that is. I want to do it.
Okay.
But I know that there are a lot of other sayings that I see that I do not understand what they are. And maybe I'm not there yet to learn what they are, but I would like to learn the beginner ones.
Well, like, what's something you've seen recently that you didn't understand?
I always see to the moon.
Okay.
People commented on our stuff. I just don't know what it means. And hold on. What those are the two I see a lot.
Okay. To the moon just implies that the price of Bitcoin is just going to keep going on up forever. To the moon, which I guess you're not really thinking long term, because why wouldn't you say like to the Mars or to the
Okay,
Jupiter?
I don't know if I like that one. Okay,
But
what's the other one?
I don't know where you got that E from. And that stands for like two different things. I've heard it both ways. One is HODL, hold on for dear life. And the other one I've heard is hold on despite losses. If you're a Bitcoin hodler, you're a person who holds on for dear life, holds on despite losses. That's where that comes from. Never sell.
So hodl
Mm-hmm.
during the dip.
You just hodl full stop, right? Like if you're hodling, you're never selling.
Well, I'm hodling. Are you hodling?
We've been hodling.
So let's get into it. Let's talk about how slang comes about in the Bitcoin community.
Am I an anthropologist today?
Well, I mean, you've been on the scene for a minute. You're not a day one. What have you seen since you've jumped in? How did you learn what hodl and to the moon and by the dip means?
Buy the dip is pretty self-explanatory, I guess, coming from the trading world, right? Like I used
Fair
to
enough.
trade stocks,
Fair
right?
enough.
So to the moon is like there's all these other altcoins like Ethereum and all the ones that I basically don't talk about, right? Well, those guys
We don't talk about crypto.
I can't get away
We
from
don't
this
talk
song.
about crypto, but Bitcoin. Okay, continue.
So alternative coins like XRP and Ethereum and all the coins that I basically don't talk about and probably won't talk about. Most of the time when they launch, there's this period of time where you can get in before the launch, like pre-launch. You get like airdrop tokens. There's all the different ways you can get them before the project officially launches. But when it does launch and like everyone else can just buy, if you got in at like 1,000 tokens for $1 and then it goes to $1, HODL is Bitcoin. Like that's a Bitcoin term.
Okay.
It's a Bitcoin term because Bitcoin is the original crypto.
And hold on for dear life has been proven so far 13 years into the Bitcoin project.
Yes. I mean, if you bought on day one and never sold, yeah, right. I forget which one it is, but it's either if you hold for a year or if you hold for 4, one of those you've been guaranteed to be up if you just bought and held.
What are some other slang terms that I should know if I'm trying to get serious with Bitcoin?
So there's this acronym that you'll see a lot: WGMI or NGMI or WAGMI.
I haven't seen those.
Okay, well, they're all derivatives of not going to make it, we are going to make it, we're all going to make it nomenclature. Usually what will happen is that people that are Bitcoiners are trying to convince other people to buy Bitcoin. And when the person keeps pushing away or rejecting the idea of Bitcoin, all right, well, you're not going to make it. WGMI, we're going to make it, right? So Bitcoiners will say WGMI a lot. And then when people are like doubting on Bitcoin, they'll say NGMI, not going to make it. So you'll see that acronym thrown around on Twitter, probably not on Instagram or TikTok.
Yep, I'm not on Twitter. Checks out.
But then you just have like other kinds of like slang that I don't say common in other like circles, but they come from other areas that the crypto people come from. So like one is wrecked, REKT.
And that's from the hacking world.
No, I mean that's from gaming pretty much. Like if you lose really bad, you got
course.
wrecked, right?
All right. Gaming, yeah. So what are the other cultures that Bitcoiners tend to gravitate from?
Well, I think the Bitcoin community is a very eclectic group of people. Is probably mostly male.
Mhm.
It's probably mostly because it's a software project. It's a lot of engineers, like engineering type minds, right?
Mhm.
Process solving, type thinking. I mean, I'm sure there's some libertarians in there, but this is more like the taxes are theft people.
Mhm.
So I think there's like different levels of, but they're usually pure, in some sense, like pure capitalists, right? But I don't want to typecast anybody. Like
Yeah.
people come from all walks of life, but I do feel like the majority is because of its like technical nature. There's a lot of technical people in this space.
But I would argue that those are the vocal people because what I've learned is that there are a lot of people that are not in that world who have Bitcoin, but don't talk about it to anyone.
Right. So like you could be a person that gets Bitcoin and doesn't have to participate in this world at all.
Mhm.
How Bitcoin works and why it like how it can operate as it does and da da da. And you just go and start accumulating Bitcoin. You don't have to be like part of the Twitter chat club.
Right. So why are there so many people that are really aggressive online about Bitcoin? Is it because there's an audience for it and they are people who just want to be content creators? Are they trying to figure out a way to make a buck off of this in their own little financial consulting way? What is the benefit of trying to be a loud and sometimes obnoxious person about Bitcoin?
Well, going back to the idea that there's this resistance quality, I would argue that the vocal Bitcoiners that you do hear and see, that is their form of resistance. They are loud and vocal about this thing called Bitcoin. And when your current system is breaking down, they are going to be vocal about the fact that their system that they're working on, this would never happen. Like that's where they get the vocalness from, and especially what's going on literally these days. What the stock market just like Facebook just tanked like 25% the other day. No one's claiming that Facebook is volatile and that
Mhm.
Facebook needs, like there's like this big thing that like when Bitcoin goes down, everyone's like, oh, it's a failed project and the sky is falling. But when it happens to Facebook, people just dumped 25% of Facebook stock. No big deal, nothing to see here. It's like, why don't you treat them the same? Because if you did, the performance of Bitcoin, you should all be cheering for it. Because if all you people care about is money, look at the performance of this asset class that's existed in front of your eyes for 13 years. That's where I think you get the vocalness is that they're being very curt about the fact that our system is working right now and yours isn't. As every year goes by, their case is proven to be more and more true, and the people that are the oldest and are alive would be like, I told you 90 years ago about this thing called Bitcoin. Like, they believe that that's going to be the future. So they're setting the stage for that.
Yeah.
Like they're ready to be like, I told you so.
Are you ready to be are you ready to be like I told you so to people? Do you feel like a Bitcoiner?
So a couple months ago, wrote an article that got published in Bitcoin Magazine. And he basically laid out the case that throughout history, there's always been this group of people that kind of pull humanity forward because they see what's coming and they make preparations to survive what's coming. They're called the remnant, right? Like that's the term. And it's got some biblical connotation that I won't get into, but it kind of comes from this idea of you're just supposed to go out and tell everybody what's up. You don't argue with them, you don't try to convince them, you just tell them what's up. And the people who get it will attract to you. I feel like a Bitcoiner in that sense. I've lived in this world and I've seen how this world works, and it's just always been like, this doesn't make sense,
Mhm.
But like everyone's doing it. So am I the crazy one? And then one day there's a group of people that are like, no,
You're
that's
not crazy.
you're not crazy. That's a clown show. And oh, let us show you how you can kind of walk away from that world and regain your sanity as you were going crazy thinking that's the only way to do it. That's the only way to live. And so in that sense, I feel like uh I was like this in they said like there's different levels to the remnant, and I was like unawoken remnant. But then once I found Bitcoin and it pulled me into the cryptocurrency world, and then I kind of came back to just only Bitcoin, I definitely get what the Bitcoiners are talking about. And I think sometimes they go a little too far left, a little too far right. But for the most part, the idea of you don't own anything. And Bitcoin is literally the only thing that you can truly own 100%. When people realize that that's the only thing that you can truly own because everything else can just be taken away from you, what does that world look like? Like, what does that world look like? And the Bitcoiners believe that that world looks amazing. And I agree.
Because there are all these eclectic groups that are out here trying to be Bitcoiners, I think there are gaps in communities that just aren't being reached. There aren't people within those communities that have become Bitcoiners yet to talk to the people in their community about it. Obviously, we're trying to be those people. Ultimately, our intention was to instead have one-off conversations with people that were asking you about Bitcoin for us to be able to inform everyone at once about it.
Yeah, I think the eclectic group of people is actually like a benefit. It'd be different if every single Bitcoiner was a software engineer and we were all just sitting there being like, you guys don't get it. It's pure math. It works. Trust us,
But
right?
there are so many engineers out there that think Bitcoin is a scam.
That is true.
Yeah.
That's a different conversation. What I'm saying is that if it was all just literally a homogenous group of people saying this thing is better, I don't think it would resonate and it would go anywhere. The fact that it's a eclectic group means that you could be into gardening. I know at least 2 gardeners on YouTube that are also big Bitcoin people, right? Not all the gardeners, but if you now identify as a Bitcoiner and you have a choice between watching a channel from a gardener who doesn't believe in Bitcoin and watching a channel of a gardener who does, you're going to gravitate to the one who does.
So Bitcoiners ride or die for each other.
100%.
How do they do that?
A great example is what I just described. Just the act of consuming the content that's being made by the person who is also in Bitcoin.
So kind of vote with your dollars.
Vote with your dollars, vote with your eyeballs,
Mhm.
right?
Vote with your Bitcoin.
Vote with your exactly. Vote with your Satoshis.
We're gonna have to change that saying.
But like a really great example of Bitcoiners and the Bitcoin community is because a lot of Bitcoiners got Bitcoin at so cheap and it's worth so much today, when there are certain causes that pop up, some Bitcoiners will just donate a whole Bitcoin because they got like 1,000 of them,
Wow.
right? You know, recently in Canada, there were these protests and the GoFundMe money got shut down. So the Bitcoiners just spun up like their own fundraising campaign for these guys and raised, I want to say like $10 million in Bitcoin.
Wow.
Like it's crazy. And like,
now you're scaling it back.
no,
Okay.
because I think the GoFundMe money was 10 million. That's where I'm getting the 10 million from. But when the story got out that GoFundMe had like frozen the money, the Bitcoiners spun up a donation page. And because of the way that Bitcoin moves, the money was flying into this donation account and you could watch it all happen in real time. Versus if you go through GoFundMe, there's a 3-day delay. So like before GoFundMe could even
so does Bitcoin eliminate the need for GoFundMe?
Yes.
Ooh, there's another enemy.
And so the enemy is all of these middlemen that sit
Mhm.
between you and the person that you're trying to give value to. And so Bitcoiners tend to be anti-middleman.
And these eclectic groups are going to uncover all the different ways that we have middlemen in place that can be seamlessly removed with the use of Bitcoin.
Exactly.
This man is nodding his head so hard at me. I feel like he just fell in love with me again. The way he's looking at me.
I think that's a good example of the culture in the community. You know, like I donated to them. I saw the whole Twitter community being like, donate here. And I was like, yeah, I got you. Boom. And because of how Bitcoin works, I can see when the money landed. And I can see this, everyone can watch this wallet just filling up.
And it's showing the world the impact that the Bitcoin community can have. So, what else are Bitcoiners trying to do online?
I think right now, the big thing that Bitcoiners are focused on is people that everyone actually knows. And so there's had a couple of high name or high profile people like the mayor of Miami, the mayor of New York, and some other people. But maybe he's been a Bitcoiner for a while. But the mayor of Miami has been a Bitcoiner for a while. He's been trying to make Miami Bitcoin, Bitcoin central. Recently, I feel like a lot of noise has been made about when you find out that someone has Bitcoin. We found out recently that Ted Cruz has Bitcoin, right? When people find out that people have Bitcoin, it's like, okay, well, if you have it, you should be advocating for us, right? Like you should be defending us. And if you truly understand what this is about. And so they've been kind of calling people's bluffs in that regard.
And why do you think people aren't speaking up?
I think people are speaking up when it finally clicks for them. But it is a very tricky subject to internalize and understand coming from this crazy world that we live in,
And to be able to then speak publicly
and then
about
to be
it
able to speak
without
publicly
being
about it.
attacked and
Yeah, and
made to
so
feel like an idiot.
but when you do stand up and raise your hand and say, like, "I'm a Bitcoiner," like, as a politician, like, I don't even remember her name, but some female politician who's running, I think she's running against an incumbent, is, like, accepting Bitcoin donations, like, is all Bitcoin, like, pro Bitcoin, and had, like, a on Twitter, they have Spaces, which is like Clubhouse. They had, like, a Clubhouse with her and, like, Jack Dorsey, and, like, she has talked to, like, top level, I'm putting this in air quotes here, top level Bitcoin people just by raising her hand saying, "I'm a candidate who believes in Bitcoin."
Who are the top level Bitcoin people?
I say top level just meaning most
It's like
famous.
top shelf.
Yeah, it's like most famous slash most wealthy slash most influential on the space.
Who are they?
Well, Jack Dorsey, former CEO of Twitter, Michael Saylor, large buyer of Bitcoin over the past 2 years. I think he has the most Bitcoin of any single company or person. He's got like 100 and something thousand Bitcoin.
And what does he do? What did he do to get his wealth?
He has a company called MicroStrategies. They make tech. They make
Okay.
and sell tech.
He's a tech dude.
But he's one of the first people that literally said, "I'm going to sell stock in my company. Like, I'm going to issue new shares of my company, sell them, take that money to buy Bitcoin explicitly and hold it on our books instead of cash."
Which you said Tesla / Elon Musk did last year also.
Yeah, he did it before them.
Elon Musk is also one of the top shelf Bitcoiners, right? Who
No.
else?
Elon-
Oh, he's not.
No, see, this is a great point about the.
Ooh, okay.
So this is a great.
Tell me the gossip, babe. What's going on? Is this because he was pushing Dogecoin on SNL?
No, this was before that. He's not welcome in the Bitcoin community because he bought Bitcoin, said Tesla was going to start accepting it as payment, then went back on that, did not allow Tesla to take it as payment, and said the reason was that Bitcoin was too energy intensive. Like, he jumped on.
Oh, he started that whole.
He didn't start it, but he jumped on that bandwagon, and the Bitcoiners just shut him down. They're like, "That you're talking FUD now. Like, you're one of the fear, uncertainty doubters." Like, no.
Oh yeah, FUD. I know FUD too.
Yeah, you know, you learned
Man,
FUD. Yeah.
It's been a minute.
So yeah, when he did that, they just ran him out of town, and that's when he started promoting Doge.
Damn, Bitcoin's cutthroat.
Not cutthroat. They just don't have time for the nonsense.
Neither do I. It's like I'm getting to know someone and I'm getting interested, and it was time that I asked about their friends. Like, who is the company that Bitcoin keeps? Now I feel like I understand it a little better.
What's the one thing you took away from that? What do you think of their friends?
I think they're people that have heard about Bitcoin and they were able to absorb it and they understand it. I think that some communities are getting hit with that information before others. And hopefully we're helping our communities flirt with the idea of maybe one day being a Bitcoiner.
One day.
But that's enough dating for now. I want to get online and I want to chat with my friends about this Bitcoin that I'm getting to know. So remember, get on our social, share our clips, jump in on the Bitcoin banter, and let's all keep flirting with Bitcoin.